The candle guttered low, throwing long shadows across the ledger. My fingers froze on the page. There it was again, a child's name, no older than 7, recorded as White. But the mother's entry, cross-referenced 2 pages back, read Negress, property of. The signature at the bottom was unmistakable, Jacques Beaumont. The same looping hand, the same notary seal. This was the 4th time in 2 weeks. My pulse hammered in my throat. If anyone walked in now, I would have no explanation for why I was still here after hours.
Before we begin this story, if you're drawn to the dark stories that history tried to erase, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the stories we uncover every day. And let us know in the comments which state you're watching from. We love seeing how far these forgotten stories are reaching. New Orleans, 1857. The city breathed like a fever patient, humid, restless, thick with the smell of river mud and burning sugar. I worked in the notarial offices on Royal Street, where every transaction in the parish was inked into permanence. Land, slaves, freedoms, lies. The men who owned the plantations controlled the ledgers. The rest of us, clerks, assistants, men like me, were supposed to keep the pages clean and the secrets sealed. But secrets in Louisiana never stayed sealed for long. The staircases creaked underfoot at night. The windows rattled with every carriage passing below. Gas lamps outside cast yellow pools on the cobblestones, but inside the archives it was only candlelight and the scratch of my pen. I was Elias Thibodeau, 28, raised in a modest house on Burgundy Street, trained to copy, file, and never ask questions. Jacques Beaumont was the man everyone respected. Tall, silver-haired, voice like velvet over steel. He had notarized deeds for half the Creole families in the city and half the American planters who had moved in after the purchase. His office was always the busiest. Men waited outside his door to have him witness their wills, their sales, their quiet arrangements. He smiled easily, but his eyes never did. I had worked under him for 3 years, grateful for the position, terrified of losing it. I had no family left to speak of, just a sister who had married into a small shopkeeping line and never spoke of the past. Beaumont had taken me on when no one else would. I owed him everything. That made what I was finding hurt worse. It started with a routine filing. An old manumission packet had been misshelved. I opened it to refile and saw the child's description. Marie, age 9, white, freed by act of charity. Attached was the mother's bill of sale from 1848, enslaved, listed as mulatto. No explanation for the contradiction. The notary's name, Jacques Beaumont. I closed the folder, heart racing. The next day, I searched for more. Another child, age 6, white. Another, age 4, white. All freed, all signed by Beaumont. The room felt smaller. The silence pressed against my ears. I knew the law. Free people of color could stay only with special permission, and even then they lived under suspicion. But white children were citizens by birth. No bond, no exile, no questions. If these children were truly white, they had never been slaves at all. But the mother's records said otherwise. I could have closed the ledger and walked away. I didn't. Night after night, I returned after the office emptied. The corridor outside was dark. The only sound the distant clop of horses on Chartres Street. I lit a single candle and searched. 23 cases in 5 years. All children under 12. All described as white or fair complexion white. all manumitted without bond or court appearance, all signed by Beaumont. My hands trembled as I turned pages. Doubt crept in. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the mother's records were mistaken. Then I found the pattern. The fathers were never named directly, but the witnesses were always the same circle. Judge Lemonnier, Planter Delacroix, Merchant Villeray. Men who sat in the same pews on Sundays, who toasted each other at balls. Men who owned the women who bore these children. One night, a floorboard creaked behind me. I blew out the candle and sat motionless. Footsteps paused, then retreated. My shirt stuck to my back with sweat. I started taking notes on scraps of paper I hid in my coat. Every discovery felt like a weight added to my chest. Sleep became impossible. I saw Beaumont's signature in my dreams. I began to avoid his eyes in the office. He noticed. "You look tired, Elias," he said one morning, voice soft. "Something troubling you?" I shook my head, throat dry. He smiled. The smile didn't reach his eyes. The last ledger I opened was the oldest. Tucked inside was a private memorandum, folded tight. Beaumont's handwriting. A list of names, 23 children, each matched to a father. The last entry made my blood turn cold. E. Thibodeau, son, born 1849, listed white, freed 1855. My name, my birth year, the date my mother died in childbirth on a plantation outside the city. I stared at the page until the ink blurred. Beaumont had known my mother. He had notarized her sale years before. He had freed me by declaring me white, erasing the slave line before it reached me. I was not a clerk who stumbled on a secret. I was part of it. The truth hit like a door slamming shut. Beaumont had not been covering for strangers. He had been covering for himself and his circle. The children were theirs, sons and daughters born in the quarters, then scrubbed clean in the records, freed as white so they could live without the shadow of the law. The price was silence. The cost were the mothers left behind, the names erased, the truth sealed in ink. I sat in the dark for hours. The candle burned down to nothing. I never confronted him. I couldn't. The next morning, I filed the memorandum back where I found it. Beaumont greeted me as always. I nodded, voice steady. The city moved on. Whispers circulated in kitchens and back alleys. Children who looked too fair for the cabins. Freedoms granted too easily. But no one spoke aloud. The records remained. The names stayed buried. What happened to those children after they walked out of the courthouse as white? Did they ever learn the truth? Did their mothers ever see them again? And how many more ledgers are still waiting in the shadows, signed by hands that knew exactly what they were erasing? I still work in that office. I still see Beaumont's signature every day. And every time I do, I wonder, how deep does the silence go? If you're willing to question the version of history you were given, keep looking. Some names were never meant to disappear.